Hi, welcome to our program, Leaders Are Readers and Readers Are Leaders. Your host, David Molapo. It is true that life is like a train ride stations. Some of us come out of the station, some of us get into that train so that we can move to the next station. Today we've got a dynamic man who knows what it is to go into different stations of life. And join me as I welcome my friend, Ingwenya Ibrahim, Dr. Abner Mariri. Abner.
How's it, Chimza?
Good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you, my friend.
Thank you so much.
As well.
And thank you for being in our program, Leaders Are Readers and Readers Are Leaders.
Thank you for hosting me. It's a privilege for me. For you, I'll do anything. You know that. I'll do anything.
You're kind.
Yeah.
But a lot of people want to know, who is this man, Abner Mariri?
This man, Abner Mariri, is a mystery told in verse. Effectively, I do three things. The first thing that I do is training. The second aspect of what I do is manufacturing. And the third component is community development initiatives. But the truth, if you want to get to know Abner Mariri, very
Correct. Humble
person, born and bred in the East End, in the township, grew up in utter poverty, abject poverty. I'm not unique in that situation. Many of us in South Africa grow up under that environment. But I always knew that even though I was born in that environment was not born in me. And that I had the wherewithal and the ability, like the phoenix rising from the ashes, I could rise from my circumstances and become anything that I want. I didn't grow up very easily. I had 4 sisters, 2 brothers. For the better part of my upbringing, 7 children. For the better part of my upbringing, I slept just like many South Africans in the kitchen with my 3 brothers in a 4-room house. I was actually literally brought up by my grandmother, who unfortunately died when I was abroad, and unfortunately I could not come to bury her. But it is that environment that kind of inspired and motivated me to say, you know, you can dream, you can become something, it is possible. So Abner Mariri is a person really who comes from humble beginnings, if it were, and through the grace of God saw opportunities and decided, well, I'm going to seize those opportunities.
It is true that you ended up going to the United States.
Correct.
You ended up being an actor with people like Bill Cosby and a lot of other people. But before we go there, what shaped your interest in the area of reading particularly?
What shaped the interest of my reading is actually my grandmother. You know, my grandmother, in the context of the struggle of what we were going through as Africans. Remember that during that time, it was during apartheid era days. And we were fighting against the system of injustice that we felt was deplorable insofar as Africans were concerned. So we hated education. But it was that grandmother who forced me to go to school. She grew up in a farm, very poor, incredibly intelligent woman. But she constantly said, you need to go to school because through education, you can achieve anything. And later I realized that even though I'm in a township, even though I'm in a squatter camp, poor environment, through a book, I can dine with the kings and the queens of this world. Through a book, I can escape my misery and find myself, you know, exploring the world, if it were, you know. So I fell in love with reading. And there's a guy named Niels Lindhardt who says, until you know who you are, you cannot know what you can become. And for me, knowledge is power. And while I was in the States, I worked for an institute that was started by a professor who did extensive research about the late Marcus Garvey. And Marcus Garvey says, if you have no confidence in yourself, you are twice defeated in the race of life. But with confidence, you have achieved even before you get started. So I then realized that if information breeds knowledge, therefore I need to make sure that I have as much information as I possibly could. And how do you get that information except through reading? So I fell in love with the concept of reading. And yes, when I was overseas, a whole lot of things were opened up to me. The struggle for African Americans, the emancipation of African Americans, and the struggles that they had to endure and what they had to go through. For me, it was just like a world told in verse. And Stephen Bantu Biko puts it well when he says, black man, black woman, you are on your own. So for me, I was on my own. And therefore, I had to carve a niche for myself in this world to try and make my life better. And for the family that I represented and the community from whence I came from.
What inspired this book, The Door?
What inspired this book, The Door, is effectively, the door is my journey of addiction. I'm a proudly recovering addict. And I was addicted to drugs, and my drug of choice was crack cocaine. At the height of my addiction, I mixed everything. It was cocaine, ecstasy, alcohol, and a bit of freebase, you know. So I mixed it all, and I became decadent. I became arrogant. I became self-centered, egotistic, you name it. I was full of grandiosity and pride, and I just became something that I never thought I would be. So my life took a shift, you know. Because they say there's always a cataclysmic event that takes place that makes you to go into something like that. And for me, having left, you know, Sbusiso, who died, who was killed at school at the age of about 17 years old, I couldn't deal with his murder. And I subsequently went into active addiction. I was at the wrong place at the wrong time, and I was given something that I could not reject. And unfortunately, because I was making money, my drug of choice was something that was entertaining. I never thought in my wildest dreams I would become a drug addict. And lo and behold, a couple of years later, I found myself tremendously emaciated, lost weight. Funny enough, I actually, when I was at my previous church, you know, I brought in a whole bunch of celebrities, worked with the late Huma Sikela, whom I worked with in the US, worked with the likes of Tsepo Tsula, Kabelo Mabalane, in Huma Sikela's drive to help artists, you know, against substance abuse. Little did I know that one day I will find myself there. So when I came back, I literally hit rock bottom. I practically, for all intents and purposes, sold everything. I never thought that I had the strength to pick up a microwave and literally walk two blocks to go and pawn it for drugs. And I became the talk of the town, lost weight, it was Huma Sikela who paid for me to go to my first rehab in Randburg. You know, I relapsed while I was inside. Came back, went to another rehab, and relapsed just 2 days after that situation. Of course, it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. They say 1,000, one is too many, 1,000 never enough. And progressively, I was inching closer and closer to the abyss, and ultimately to death, because according to World Health Organization, if you're in addiction, it's jails, institutions, and death. And I went to jail for drugs. I was in a couple of institutions, and eventually I checked myself at a place called South Coast Recovery Center, which was in Margate, and there I spent approximately 8 months of my life, and subsequently came back strong and fiddle. The experiences that I had, I decided I needed to inform the world about what I've gone through.
When we come back, I want us to explore on how long that episode was and what are you doing now.
Okay, brilliant.
So we'll be back after these messages with Dr. Abner Mariri, the author of The Door. Hi, this is David Molapo, and welcome back to Leaders Are Readers and Readers Are Leaders. We are with the author of The Door, Dr. Abner Mariri. He shared with us who is this man, the defining moments in his life, how he got into addiction that gave birth to this book, The Door. How long have you been addicted?
I was addicted approximately between 3 to 5 years, you know, to my drug of choice. The initial 3 years, obviously, I could control it. It gives you tremendous energy, tremendous power. I mean, I'm not here to advertise drugs, but it was when I started smoking, it was like a new world was literally opened up to me. And I discovered something I never thought I had. You know, all your inhibitions are gone. And I just fell in love, and it numbed the pain that I was enduring, that I was struggling with. And of course, you know, along the way, there was a lot of destructive and chaotic and madness that characterized my journey with addiction. So I was in it for about 3 years, but the last 2 years was extremely difficult because I was hooked, you know, every single day. I spend, and I say it with the utmost of humility, at least 10 to 15 grand a day. And I was not productive, I was not working. I was working for myself, of course, and everything disintegrated at the seams. And I decided, look, you know, I needed to do something, and do something urgently. Otherwise, you know, drugs will make you do things that you've never done. You know, I'm from Joburg. I grew up in church. For all intents and purposes, I was in leadership and occupied very strategic position in my church. And when I was in active addiction, we have 2 services. And I used to carry cocaine on one side of my pocket, and on the other side, I would have a crack pipe. And in between services, I will go and smoke, because if you don't smoke, you sweat a lot. So I had to kill that sweat, So here I was in the front pew of the church. I became a master pretender. Truly speaking, I should have been given a Best Performing Award for best performance, because I was there just for people to see me, but inside I was empty and I was dying and I was hollow. Had it been not for the grace of God, I would not be standing and sitting here today. And like I said earlier on, it was Huma Sikela who took me to my first rehab, relapsed, went to the second one, relapsed, and ultimately I went to South Coast Recovery Center, where I spent approximately 8 months of my life. I think you came there to see me one of the days, and I appreciate that. And at 9 hours, even Noel Jones, drove down when he came with TD Jakes and Thibaut Touch to come and see me when I was at South Coast.
Today you're clean for how many years?
Today I'm clean. On the 5th of May, I celebrated 11 years clean time from drugs that almost took my life.
Back to The Door.
Yeah.
So when people read that book, The Door,
yeah,
what is it that they will discover, find, and lessons to be learned?
It was a difficult book to write. You won't believe me, it's got 6, The Door, it's got 6 doors. The last door took me about 3 years to write, because this is where I process my madness. As you know, you were umkongi, to go and get my wife, and my family very well. And it was not easy. So all that information and that chunk, I had to process it while I was in rehab. Now to write about it and to relive the moment was very difficult. And I had to put myself in the book. For Christians, I will ask them to read it with caution, because I put myself in that situation. So I call a spade a spade. So I've been, there's no strip joint I've not been in Gauteng, none whatsoever. And the majority of them, it's just a front for drugs. And I was there, and this is where I scored my drugs. This is where I used my drugs till 4, 5 in the morning, and I will drive home and get home, and when I get there, take a shower, take a nap, have some cup of coffee, put in a suit, off to church, I go. So that chaos and madness is all put in a book, condensed in 230 pages or so in the book, and we methodically and systematically put it in such words that even a high school kid can be able to comprehend and understand, because we're not trying to be impressive, we're trying to communicate the message, to say, I was talking for social development the other day, and I said to them, the same intensity with which we fought HIV/AIDS is the same intensity with which we need to fight addiction. Because in my subjective view, I believe strongly that if we are not careful, a future generation of this country will be wiped out. You'll be surprised at the rate at which young people are addicted. Now I counsel all kinds of people. I counsel DGs, I counsel doctors, I counsel kids who come from high school, I counsel parents and fathers who are struggling, who don't even understand the nature of the disease that their children are suffering from.
You mentioned 6 doors. Can you just share maybe 1 or 2 or 3 of those doors?
Well, there's a door of hope, because as a human being, we all have a story to tell. And I like the word of God that says that we overcome by the word of our testimony and by the blood of the Lamb. So every single person has a story to tell. And I wish that we could stop being copycats of people and become originals, because all of us have been given and granted something to bring into this world. So for me, a door that I would like to highlight, the rest I will leave it for my readers to read the book, is the door of hope, that in whatever situation, particularly in the context of what we are facing as Africans, as the world, the coronavirus, and people having lost jobs, the rate of depression, the amount of suicides, the number of people who are contemplating suicides, who are on the edge of practically losing everything. I always say there is always a door of hope. Nothing happened by accident. And for us who are born again, who are Christians, everything works together for good to them that love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. So there must always be an opportunity to say there is a door of hope. Even in my madness, in my chaos of undetermined pain, there is a door of hope. There is a poem that encapsulates, I wish I can read it for you. It said, my name is cocaine, call me Coke for short. Ever since I've entered this country without a passport, ever since then I've made lots of scum rich. Some have been murdered and found in a ditch. I'm more valued than diamonds, more treasured than gold. Use me just one time and you too will be sold. I'll make a schoolboy forget his books. I'll make a beauty queen forget her looks. I'll take a renowned speaker and make him a bore. When you are under my power, you have no will. Remember, my friend, my name is Big C. If you use me just one time, if you try me one time, you may never be free again. So it's just a summary of the poem, but you can use practically it for everything. If you're on nyaope, crack, methamphetamine, anything that you are using. There are people who are addicted to, I'm counseling somebody now who is addicted to sleeping pills, sleeping tablets, and this is over-the-counter medication. And people don't think that people can be addicted to such things. They're taking 22 tablets a day, you know, just to remain sane and to remain focused. And we're looking at a variety of things of how we can help people.
Well, this is Dr. Abner Mariri sharing his story. And obviously, I want to encourage people to get a copy of The Door. Unfortunately, we'll not be able to finish this session. We're definitely going to have a part 2. But before we go on a quick break, where can people get this book?
Well, actually, we are launching the book. We at hopefully exclusive bookstore Hyde Park by first week of December. It will be available. And we can also, from ICANN Foundation, they will be able to pick up the book, and they will be able to pick up the book in all the events of ICANN and where we go, because we want to take it to the people. Yes, exclusive books is nice to have, but we want to take it to the people so people can know what it is. Hopefully when we come back, we'll talk about my Choose Life component. But it is a book, I guarantee you, in my subjective view, and I'm not blowing my own trumpet, it is something that will transform and change your life. We have a story to tell. You have a story to tell. Never underestimate the route that God has chosen for you, the path that God has chosen for you. You can help somebody. You are designed particularly for a reason, and for such a time as this, you need to rise like the phoenix rising from the ashes and be everything that God has designed for you to become. You can help somebody. Somebody who's in the verge, you know. Sometimes you go through 30 years of misery to help somebody in 30 minutes. And some of you guys are sitting with tremendous material and you are afraid to pen it down. I hope that through the book you can be nudged to say, if I can do it, by the grace of God, you can do it as well.
Well, we'll come back for the last segment of part 1 after these messages. Welcome back to Leaders Are Readers and Readers Are Leaders with our special guest, drug addict, but now a promoter of hope in all areas of his life. Abner, before we wrap up, because we're definitely going to have a part 2,
yes,
you were saying that unfortunately, these drug things are a serious situation for us, adults, children, yes, professionals, non-professionals. Unpack that statement.
Yeah, a couple of things. There's so much to share. And the scope is wide. One of the things that I picked up when I was in rehab was that for those who obviously are believers, you know, they grouped us according to our drug of choice. And my drug of choice was crack cocaine. And crack cocaine, at the height of your addiction, you become numb to sexual activity. And effectively you open a door there's a demon called incubus and succubus. And you become very closely familiar with those demons. And you can have a sexual activity with that particular demon at the height of your addiction. That is the chaos and the madness, and I wish I had the time to unpack it. But you must remember that when I came back from the US, God opened doors. I found myself in manufacturing, basically manufacturing for Transnet Freight Rails. Bought a business that was manufacturing BOPP film that is used to cover quite a number of things for NEMPACs and for the likes of NEMPACs and so forth and so on. So from a business point of view, I've got a business book that's coming up called Hard Lessons. I've been through business rescue. I know everything that there is to know about business rescue. I've been through liquidations, you know, where we've put in and sunk in 30 million rands worth of our money, only to find that it was liquidated, money that we have made, hard earned. I've sat in high court. I've never thought I'll sit in high court with partners, sitting on the other side and I'm sitting on this side. You know, so the weight of that, you know, took a toll on my life. And unfortunately, I found myself in a situation where there was absolutely nothing that I could do. I touch a little on it when it comes to my book, just to give a context so that people understand who I am, where I come from, and the decisions. You know, some of the decisions, I fell in the valley of indecision, and some of the decisions that I made, I regret even to this day. You know, I wish I had not taken that path, but again, everything works together for good to them that love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. And for me, the door is basically hopefully something that will bring about transformation in the lives of many South Africans.
Your final words on during this part one, looking at the camera, somebody is a little bit discouraged. Would you just encourage them? Some of them need to open a door, some of them need to close the door. Please talk to them for about a minute.
We are the sum total of our experiences. And for the most part, because our experiences have been negative, we tend to be fearful to venture out into something that is new, even if God brings it to our direction. And sometimes when we do venture out into something new, in the back of our heads, the back of our minds, we think that we're going to fail because our experiences are such that we have failed so many times. And I've seen that with my life, is that because of my experiences and because I've failed so many times, I think that even anything that is coming, I'm going to fail. So I attempted giving it half-heartedly, knowing that, well, maybe my lot is to fail in everything. But I want to encourage somebody to say, you are a dynamite. You are meticulously and systematically created by a supreme being. You are talented, you are gifted. There is something that you offer to this world. Never underestimate the power and the capacity of who you are. And remember that with God you form the majority. So always be on the lookout for opportunities. Somebody once said that it is better for me to be prepared to have an opportunity and not have one, rather than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. Time and chance is given to everyone. And I can guarantee you that there's an opportunity for you sitting, waiting for you, a door that's waiting to open. And yes, there are certain doors that you would need to close. But there is a door that's open with your name on it. All you have to do is to keep fighting like a soldier.
Abner Mariri, this is part one. We're going to be back after these messages.
Thank you.
Well, you heard it from Dr. Abner Mariri that there is that door of hope. Whatever train ride that you have, go for hope. Until next week, see you then.